Jeudy's latest blow-up wasn't just another moment of passion. It was the tipping point. As tensions flared on the sideline, Jeudy's inability to rein in his emotions drew sharp backlash, and Denzel Ward didn't hesitate to speak on it. Ward called out what many have been tiptoeing around. Jeudy's behavior is no longer just frustrating, it's destructive. With a team already on edge, every outburst widens the cracks, and the locker room isn't willing to tolerate it anymore. Ward's comments weren't just criticism. They were a challenge to Jeudy, to the coaches, and to anyone enabling the dysfunction.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
This team isn't struggling because of bad plays. It's struggling because leadership is missing where it matters most. While Jeudy lets emotions guide his decisions, Sanders stays locked in, setting the tone through his actions. But Shedeur can't be the only one holding the team together. Without stronger direction from Stefanski and a culture that demands discipline, the team risks burning out its few real leaders and falling apart in the process. Denzel Ward did something most players avoid. He told the truth, not the PR-friendly version, not the sanitized locker room stays in the locker room version. The truth about what's going on behind closed doors, about the clash between Shedeur Sanders and Jeudy, about the silent sidelines and the coaching staff that just watches the chaos unfold, and most of all, about how far off course this team has drifted. He didn't have to say names. We know who he was talking about, and we know exactly why. There's a difference between energy and discipline, between passion and recklessness. And if you look at how Shedeur Sanders and Jeudy have handled themselves, that difference becomes impossible to ignore. One of them is doing everything he can to keep the team grounded. The other is making it harder for everyone around him to breathe. Ward called out directly. The drama isn't just annoying, it's dangerous. Dangerous for team chemistry. Dangerous for leadership. Dangerous for the trust that holds a locker room together. And right now, that trust is cracking under pressure. On one end, you got Shedeur. Cool, collected, focused. He's not out here screaming on the sidelines or feeding headlines. He's trying to lead, not just through words, but through composure. And when your quarterback is as composed, this level-headed, you follow him, or at least you're supposed to. Instead, he's getting resistance from inside his own team. Jeudy's emotional swings and sideline blowups aren't just distractions. They're signals. They tell the rest of the team that chaos is allowed, that ego can outrank effort. And that's what Ward was really getting at. This team has lost its accountability. Jeudy's inconsistency, both in behavior and presence, is throwing the team off rhythm. One moment he's engaged, the next he's arguing. One game he's producing, the next he's distracted. And it doesn't go unnoticed. Players talk. They see who's bought in and who's just making noise. And right now, the noise is outweighing the commitment. But this isn't just about Jeudy. It never was. The real failure is at the top. Ward didn't just criticize a teammate. He shined a spotlight on Coach Sean Stefanski. Because when this much dysfunction is happening under your watch and you're still standing there arms folded, saying nothing, doing nothing, that's not just a leadership issue. That's neglect. Leadership means stepping in when the temperature rises. It means knowing your players, managing personalities, and shutting down distractions before they spread. Stefanski, according to Ward's remarks, isn't doing any of that. The team isn't just leaderless, it's rudderless. And what's worse, the players know it. You can see in the way Sanders has had to stretch himself in just to keep the team afloat. A young quarterback, trying to earn his stripes, is now carrying not only the offense, but the emotional tone of the team. That's not fair. It's not functional. And it's not supposed to be his job. Shedeur should be focused on reading defenses, not defusing his teammates. But when the coach is silent and veterans are tired, someone's got to keep the roof from collapsing. And that someone has been him. Ward's frustration is layered. He's not just upset at Jeudy. He's angry at the system that allows it, at the lack of boundaries, at the absence of leadership, at a culture that's slowly become defined not by execution or discipline, but by drama. And when you strip all the analysis down, here's what it comes to. Accountability starts at the top. And right now, there is none. Players like Ward and Sanders are trying to hold the team together through action and example, but that only works if the system reinforces it, if the coaching staff supports it, if the message from the top aligns with what the locker room is being told. But that alignment, it's missing. Coach Stefanski's inability or refusal to address these internal conflicts is a foundation of this entire mess. Instead of leading firmly, he's letting personalities define the tone. Instead of setting a standard, he's letting things play out. And when you do that, you don't just lose control, you lose a team. This is the cost of passive leadership. When minor issues go unchecked, they grow. When behavior isn't addressed, it spreads. And when nobody knows what the boundaries are, people start testing them. That's what Ward is warning about. That's why he said what he said. Because if no one steps up, this tension becomes normal. This dysfunction becomes expected. And the team won't just stop winning. They'll stop believing. Believing in each other. Believing in the staff. Believing in the system. And once that belief is gone, there's no getting it back without major changes. What's terrifying is how long this has been brewing. This wasn't one bad week. This was a slow decline. Ward didn't just wake up one day and decide to speak out. He reached a point where silence was more damaging than honesty. And when that happens, it's already deep. Shedeur is doing everything right. But even the most mature leader has limits. Eventually, the pressure breaks you. And the question now is, how long can he keep holding it all together before the weight is too much? And don't get it twisted. This isn't about creating controversy. Ward isn't some rogue voice stirring the pot. He's trying to protect the team from itself. Trying to call attention to something the staff won't. That's leadership. That's what a real veteran does. But leadership can't just come from the players. That's not sustainable. You need a head coach who takes action, who sets tone, who doesn't let sideline chaos define the culture. And based on everything Ward has said, Sean Stefanski isn't doing any of that. So where does that leave them? With a fractured locker room, a quarterback carrying too much, a receiver whose behavior continues to disrupt the vibe, and a head coach who seems to be watching it all with crossed arms and a headset. This isn't just a warning. This is a breaking point. The team can either confront this dysfunction head-on, reset the culture, hold players accountable, and give Sanders the support he clearly deserves, or they can continue down the path they're on. And that path, it ends in disappointment, missed opportunities, and a locker room that simply gives up. Ward said the quiet part out loud. This team is in trouble, not because of talent, not because of the scoreboard, but because the trust is breaking, the discipline is fading, and the leadership is absent. And if nothing changes, don't be surprised when everything falls apart. Drop a comment. How would you fix this? Should Jeudy be held accountable? Does Coach Stefanski deserve to keep the locker room? And how long can Shedeur keep holding it all together? Like if you're over excuses, share this with someone who's tired of watching talented teams implode. Subscribe for more breakdowns like this, because this drama, it's not just noise. It's a warning, and it's only getting louder. The truth is, Denzel Ward didn't just speak up to stir the pot. He did it because no one else would. And the longer you let silence dominate the locker room, the louder the dysfunction gets. Right now, that dysfunction is deafening. This team is cracking from within, and Ward knows it. That's why his comments hit harder than any coach's post-game speech or front office statement. Because they came from someone in the trenches. Someone who's seen what winning culture looks like, and what happens when that culture starts rotting from the inside out. Let's stop pretending this is just about a disagreement between Shedeur Sanders and Jeudy. That's the surface-level headline. The deeper issue? It's the lack of structure, the absence of accountability, and the growing sense that the team is being run by ego rather than leadership. And yes, Jeudy is a major part of that. Ward didn't go out of his way to humiliate Jeudy. He didn't have to. He just described what everyone's been watching week after week. A talented player whose sideline antics and emotional volatility are dragging the team into unnecessary chaos. Whether it's yelling, sulking, or just being checked out, Jeudy's behavior screams me before we. And in a locker room that's already stretched thin, that's the last thing you need. Especially when your quarterback is out here doing everything right. Shedeur Sanders is, without question, holding this team together. His maturity, poise, and consistency are the only thing keeping the energy from completely collapsing. But even the strongest leaders crack under pressure when they're forced to carry more than their share. And make no mistake, he is. What Ward made painfully clear is that Shedeur isn't just playing quarterback. He's playing captain, mediator, cultural reset button, and emotional anchor. That kind of load would be heavy for a 10-year veteran, let alone someone still carving out his place in the league. It's not fair. It's not sustainable. And the reason it's happening is because the person who should be setting the tone, head coach Sean Stefanski, isn't doing it. That's where the real damage is coming from. Not just from the players who act out, but from the leadership that refuses to address it. Every time Jeudy has a meltdown and nothing is done, it sends a message. Every time the coach stays silent, it tells the locker room that standards are optional. And once that message sets in, you're done. Ward's criticism wasn't subtle. He called out the lack of unity, the breakdown in trust, and the failure to enforce discipline. And none of that happens without a coaching staff that has either lost control or, worse, never had to begin with. Sean Stefanski is being portrayed exactly as he's behaving, passive. And passive leadership doesn't work in a high-stakes, high-pressure environment like the NFL. You can't lead a team by hoping the problems solve themselves. You can't build a winning culture by letting players manage each other while you watch from the sidelines. The NFL isn't a democracy. It's not group therapy. It's a results-driven league that punishes confusion, celebrates structure, and eats indecision alive. Ward knows this. That's why he didn't hold back. He's not speaking out because he's bitter or seeking attention. He's speaking out because he still cares. He cares enough about the team's future to take the risk of telling the truth. And that truth, it's brutal. The locker room is divided. Trust is deteriorating. The coach is silent. And the quarterback is overburdened. That's not a formula for success. That's a countdown to collapse. And let's be real, this didn't just happen overnight. This is what it looks like when issues get ignored long enough that they become normal, when the drama becomes routine, when players stop expecting change and start adapting to the dysfunction. That's the most dangerous place a team can be, because once apathy sets in, it's game over. The only thing preventing that from happening right now is a handful of players still holding the line, guys like Ward and Sanders. But they're running out of room, running out of patience. And unless something changes now, this situation isn't just going to continue. It's going to get worse. Because what happens when Sanders finally snaps under the pressure? When Ward gets tired of being the only voice of reason? When a veteran stops speaking up because they know no one's listening? You don't need to guess. You've seen it happen across the league. Teams implode. Talent gets wasted. And years are lost trying to rebuild what leadership failed to protect. What's so frustrating about all this is how preventable it is. No one is asking for perfection. No one's demanding that Sean Stefanski become a master motivator overnight. But a basic level of leadership, that's non-negotiable. And right now, the team isn't getting it. This is what Ward was trying to spotlight. Not just a disagreement between teammates, but a full-blown leadership vacuum. A system where the most emotionally unstable voices are the loudest, and the most responsible players are left to clean up the mess. And unless the coaching staff steps in, takes control, and reestablishes a hierarchy of leadership, this team is heading exactly where it looks like it's heading. Nowhere. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have trust, communication, discipline, and unity, that talent doesn't mean a thing. Denzel Ward made that crystal clear. So now the pressure's on the people who've avoided it for too long. Sean Stefanski needs to decide whether he wants to be the coach of this team or just a guy wearing the headset. Because right now, the players are doing all the emotional labor while the coaching staff stays quiet. And that silence is starting to sound a lot like surrender. The message is already out. The dysfunction has already gone public. Now it's about the next move. And if that move isn't decisive, if it's more of the same, we're working through it internally noise, then don't expect anything to change. The team isn't just slipping, they're spiraling. And unless leadership steps in and stops it, this season is going to be remembered for one thing: wasted potential in a locker room that couldn't survive its own silence. If you're watching this team and thinking, Why does it feel like no one's in charge? You're not wrong. Ward's telling you exactly why. At this point, it's not even speculation. It's a slow-motion collapse happening in plain sight. Denzel Ward didn't just throw out a soundbite. He didn't lash out for the sake of headlines. He dropped the kind of truth bomb that forces an organization to look itself in the mirror and ask, how do we let it get this far? And the answer? Avoidance, complacency, leadership that refuses to lead. Because here's the thing. Teams don't implode because of one outburst on the sideline. They implode because no one was brave enough to address the first one, the second one, the third. And now here we are, with Jeudy going off in front of cameras. Shedeur Sanders holding the weight of a crumbling locker room, and Sean Stefanski standing on the sidelines like a spectator instead of a head coach. That's what Ward was calling out, not just Jeudy's behavior, but the culture that allows it, the enabling, the silence, the cowardice of pretending that internal chaos is just competitive fire. Let's be clear, competitive fire doesn't come with tantrums. It doesn't derail games. It doesn't cause teammates to walk on eggshells. And it definitely doesn't clash directly with your quarterback, the one guy trying to keep this thing afloat. Shedeur Sanders has been the grown-up in the room for weeks now. While the walls shake, he stays calm. While others fold under pressure, he leads. But leadership without support? That's just slow burnout. And it's already happening. You can see it in his body language, in his post-game demeanor, in the way he keeps his tone even, while clearly knowing he's being asked to do more than any young QB should. It's not just about leading an offense anymore. He's managing egos, de-escalating conflicts, and keeping the team from completely falling apart, all while trying to win games. That's not leadership. That's survival. And the worst part? His coach isn't helping. Sean Stefanski has somehow turned disengagement into a coaching philosophy. He's not making corrections. He's not calling out the drama. He's not putting a stop to the emotional outbursts that are dragging down team chemistry. He's letting it all play out like it's just part of the game. It's not part of the game. It's what kills the game from within. The fact that Ward had to be the one to say out loud, that's how far gone this team is. When your veterans feel like the only way to spark accountability is to speak publicly, it means the internal system has already failed. And make no mistake, Ward knew what he was doing. His comments weren't casual. They were surgical, precise, deliberate, because he's been around long enough to see where this road leads, and he's trying to stop it before it gets worse. But here's the real problem. Is anyone listening? Because if Jeudy's allowed to keep spiraling, if Sanders keeps being overworked and undersupported, and if Stefanski keeps hiding behind coach speak and quiet sideline shrugs, then Ward's words are just that, words. What they need now is action. The coaching staff can't keep letting emotional volatility go unchecked. They can't keep avoiding conflict resolution. And they definitely can't keep dumping the responsibility on players like Shedeur Sanders and Denzel Ward to manage the team dynamics. You cannot run a team on vibes. And yet, that's exactly what this looks like. This is what happens when no one sets the tone. When every player becomes their own authority. When chaos becomes more comfortable than discipline. And the results? They speak for themselves. Not just in the standings, but in the body language. The sideline tension. The interviews full of frustration masked as professionalism. Everyone is trying to stay composed. But under the surface, it's coming undone. Ward's warning wasn't subtle. This isn't about isolated conflicts or tough losses. This is about a broken foundation. A team that has no structure because its leaders don't know how, or worse, don't want, to lead. It's about a young quarterback forced into the role of team therapist while trying to learn how to win in the NFL. It's about a veteran cornerback who finally had enough and told the truth, knowing full well the backlash it might bring. And it's about a wide receiver whose behavior is being tolerated instead of corrected. That tolerance is what's killing this team. Jeudy's sideline blow-ups? Those aren't passion, they're poison. Every time he acts out without consequences, it sends a message. Chaos is allowed. Accountability is optional. And if you're talented enough, the rules don't apply to you. That's not a locker room. That's a circus. And guess who's left to sweep the floor when the elephants start rampaging? Players like Ward. Players like Sanders. The ones who actually care about unity trust, and professionalism. But their effort is being wasted. Because for every calm, focused leader trying to build something, there's someone else tearing it down in real time. The solution isn't complicated. It just requires courage. Benching a player for behavior. Speaking plainly in press conferences. Setting a standard that says, we don't tolerate distractions. We don't tolerate emotional immaturity. We don't let our teammates be the adults while the staff hides behind silence. That should have happened weeks ago. Now, it might already be too late. You don't fix a fractured culture overnight. And with each passing day that leadership refuses to lead, those fractures deepen. Trust fades. Morale drops. And by the time the front office wakes up, the season's gone. And the locker room's a shell of what it could have been. Ward's comments were a lifeline. But will anyone grab it? That's the question hanging over this team now. It's not about who's the fastest, or who's the loudest, or who gets the most airtime. It's about who actually cares enough to step up and do what needs to be done. Who's willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of growth. Who's ready to look Jeudy in the eye and say, enough. And more importantly, who's going to tell Sean Stefanski that leadership isn't about standing still. It's about standing up. If you've been watching this mess unfold and thinking, there's no way this team survives a season like this, you're right. Not without change. So drop a comment. Who needs to take the most responsibility right now? Should Jeudy be held accountable, or are the coaches just enabling the spiral? And can Shedeur really keep holding this together without burning out? Like this if you're tired of watching leadership failures ruin good teams. Share it with someone who needs to hear the truth behind the noise. And subscribe. We're just scratching the surface of this meltdown. Because until someone in that building makes a real decision, the unraveling, it's only getting worse.